This is breaking news.
On November 22, 2024, inside the Shimizu Zenzo Memorial Tennis Courts in Takasaki, Japan, Alex Eala was getting dismantled. She had won the first set. She had broken early. Everything pointed toward a routine passage into the semi-finals. And then Mananchaya Sawangkaew did something that nobody in the Filipino players' camp expected. She stopped respecting the occasion, stopped playing like the lower-ranked opponent, and ripped through Eala 6-1, 6-2 in the final two sets. That loss was 18 months ago. Now they meet again on grass in the quarterfinals of the 2026 Birmingham Open, and the question hanging over Edgbaston Priory Club is simple. Has the balance of power between these two Southeast Asian rivals shifted permanently, or was that single afternoon in Japan just a photograph of a moment that no longer exists? Let me be direct about what has happened since Takasaki. Eala took revenge 6 months later at the SEA Games in Bangkok, dismantling Sawangkaew 6-1, 6-2 in the final, a scoreline that reads like deliberate mirroring. The head-to-head stands at 1 apiece, which tells you nothing about hierarchy and everything about context. In Takasaki, Eala had played 2 matches on the same day due to weather delays. She was carrying fatigue. She committed 6 double faults, and Sawangkaew rode that opening like someone who understood the door would close if she waited. In Bangkok, Eala was the superior athlete on a hard court, fully rested, representing a nation that hadn't won SEA Games tennis gold in 26 years. The motivation differential was enormous. Birmingham is neither of those settings. Grass is the great equalizer for players who haven't accumulated decades of feel on the surface, and both Eala and Sawangkaew are working with relatively thin grass court resumes. What separates them here isn't history, it's what they've done this week. Eala arrived as the top seed, ranked 37th in the world, and she has moved through this draw with a kind of controlled violence that's rare for someone playing only her second professional grass court event of the season. She handled Priscilla Han 6-love, 6-2 in the first round, the kind of scoreline that either reflects dominance or a massively overmatched opponent. In this case, it was both. Against Himeno Sakatsum in the second round, she tightened the screws with a 6-4, 6-0 win that showed increasing comfort with the lower bounce and faster court speed. Her match against Elena Korneva in the round of 16 required slightly more work, a 6-2, 7-5. But even that second set was less about Eala being troubled and more about Korneva raising her level temporarily before the inevitable reassertion. Now, look at Swiatek's path. She qualified for this tournament, beating Yuriko Miyazaki and Aoi Ito in the qualifying rounds. Then, she took down Linda Fruhvirtova 6-4, 7-5 in the first round, a match where she had to work through some tight moments in the second set. Against Kayla Day in the round of 16, she produced arguably her most impressive tennis of the week, 6-4, 6-1, dispatching the American with increasing authority in the second set. Swiatek's 2026 season record stands at 23 wins and 9 losses, which is excellent volume for a player operating primarily at the ITF and WTA 125 levels. She won the Kangaroo Cup W100 in Japan last month. She took the WTA 125 Mumbai title back in February, and she won the W75 Nonthaburi in January. This is a player in form. This is a player who has been winning consistently, building confidence week after week on a tier of the tour where confidence compounds. But here is where the analysis has to get honest about levels. Eala's 2026 has been lived in a completely different atmosphere. She reached a career-high ranking of 29 in March. She made the round of 16 at Indian Wells, where she beat Diana Yastremska and Coco Gauff before running into Linda Noskova. She reached the quarterfinals at the ASB Classic in Auckland to open the year, knocking off Donna Vekic along the way. In Rome, at a WTA 1000 on clay, a surface that has historically given her trouble, she beat Magdalena Frech and then upset Olympic silver medalist Wang Xinyu in straight sets to reach the third round. The ranking gap between these two players isn't a bureaucratic abstraction. It represents a genuine difference in the quality of opposition each has been tested against and the regularity with which each has survived those tests. So, Wanky's best WTA level result in 2026 remains her Australian Open appearance, where she lost in the first round to Emma Raducanu. That's not a slight. Making the main draw of a Grand Slam was a career milestone. But it also means her competitive rhythm this year has been built almost entirely against players ranked below the top 100. When she faces Eala, she faces someone who has stood across the net from Gauff, Muchova, Noskova, Paulini, and Ostapenko in the past 5 months alone. The pressure signatures are different. The pace is different. The way a top 40 player constructs points under duress carries a density of intention that a player at the ITF level simply encounters less often. That said, grass courts introduce a variable that disrupts clean hierarchies, and it would be intellectually dishonest to ignore ITSO. Zhang Qinwen is known for incorporating serve and volley elements into her game, a tactical wrinkle that was specifically noted during her Australian Open appearance. On grass, where the ball stays low and rewards players who take time away from opponents, that approach gains additional bite if she can land a high percentage of first serves and follow them forward. She shortens rallies and denies Eala the baseline exchanges where the Filipinas' timing and power differential would normally take over. Eala is a player whose game was built from the baseline outward. Her forehand timing, her ability to redirect pace, her two-handed backhand that generates angle from defensive positions. All of those weapons function best when she has time to read the ball off the bounce. A serve and volley disruptor can compress that time to almost nothing on grass. But there's a massive problem with building a game plan around disruption. It requires near-perfect execution to work against someone better than you. And the week's evidence says Zhang Qinwen's execution is good, but not flawless. Against Kvitova, she was pushed to 7-5 in the second set. That's a match where the momentum was genuinely contested for stretches. Against a player of Eala's caliber, someone whose return game regularly troubles top 20 servers, can Zhang Qinwen sustain the serving accuracy required to make net approaches viable? The Australian Open data point is instructive. Raducanu's aces and first serve dominance effectively neutralized Zhang Qinwen's own serve as a weapon, and the Thai player didn't have the baseline tools to compensate. Eala's serve remains the documented weakness in her game. She has battled double faults throughout her career, and against Zhang Qinwen in Takasaki, those 6 doubles contributed directly to the collapse. But that was November 2024. Since then, the work at the Rafa Nadal Academy has focused specifically on serve stability. And while the results haven't been transformative in a statistical sense, the anecdotal evidence from Birmingham this week suggests improvement. She hasn't been broken early in any of her 3 matches. She hasn't donated free points at critical junctures. Against Kerber, a player perfectly capable of punishing loose serving, Eala navigated the second set without the kind of serving implosion that characterized her worst losses earlier in the season, like the 6-0, 6-2 demolition by Muchova in Miami, or the 6-0, 6-2 loss to Noskova in Indian Wells. Let me talk about the psychological dimension, because it matters here in a way that transcends tactics. Eala knows Su Wei-si. They're the 2 best players in Southeast Asian tennis right now. They have represented their countries against each other in a SEA Games final with tens of thousands watching. They have traded brutal losses in relatively anonymous ITF settings. There is no mystery between them. Eala knows exactly what Su Wei-si will try to do: the slice approaches, the net charges, the aggressive positioning on second serve returns. Su Wei-si knows exactly where Eala's game breaks down under pressure: the serve tightening, the tendency to overhit when anxious, the occasional passivity in rallies when confidence dips. This mutual knowledge creates a chess match within the tennis match. But chess favors the player with more pieces on the board, and Eala simply has more weapons. Her forehand generates pace that Su Wei-si cannot match from the baseline. Her movement, honed at the WTA 1000 level where every opponent hits harder and constructs points more ruthlessly, gives her coverage that a serve and volley approach can only bypass if the serve itself is unreturnable. And her mental framework has matured substantially since Takasaki. The player who collapsed in the second and third sets that November day in Japan had been playing her second match of the day, had been climbing the rankings for the first time, and didn't yet know how to manage energy across a long tournament week. The player walking onto court in Birmingham is the top seed, the reigning SEA Games champion, ranked over 100 places above her opponent, coming off a season that included wins over multiple top 10 players. So, Wanki's path to victory exists. It is narrow and it runs through a specific corridor. She needs to serve above 65% first serve accuracy for the entire match. She needs to convert at least 50% of her net approaches, meaning her volleys must be clean, her reads must be sharp, and she must commit to the forward movement without hesitation. She needs IGA's serve to wobble early, ideally in the first 3 games, before the Filipino can settle into the rhythm she found against Sakatsum and Honorable, and she needs to win the first set. Because if this match goes to a deciding set, the weight of ranking, experience, and physical conditioning all tilt decisively toward IGA. Can those conditions align? Absolutely. Tennis at any level allows for improbable outcomes, and so Wanki's form this week demonstrates she is playing with genuine confidence. Her win over Kayla Day in the round of 16 was not a scrappy underdog survival. It was a statement performance, 6-4, 6-1, played with the authority of someone who believed she belonged. That confidence is real, and on grass, where the margin between holding serve and getting broken can be a single mishit return, confidence translates directly into free points. But probability and possibility are different currencies. The probability says IGA wins this match. It says so because of ranking, because of the quality of opposition each has faced this week and this year, because of the head-to-head being deadlocked with the more recent result favoring Eala, and because of the simple physical reality that Ella's ground strokes carry more weight than Swiatek's net game can consistently neutralize over 2 sets. The surface helps Swiatek. The mutual familiarity helps Swiatek. The qualifier's mentality, nothing to lose, everything to gain, helps Swiatek. But help is not enough against a player who has beaten Coco Gauff twice, who took a set off Jessica Pegula in a WTA 1000 semifinal, and who walks onto this particular patch of grass having dropped a total of 12 games across 3 matches this week. My prediction is Eala in straight sets, but competitive straight sets. Something in the range of 6-4, 6-3. Swiatek will make the first set tight because her serving will hold early and her net approaches will catch Eala cold in the opening games. But as the match progresses, Ella's return game, the same return game that troubled Gauff, that created havoc against Ostapenko, that forced errors from Paolini, will decode the patterns. She will begin anticipating the net charges, hitting passing shots low to Swiatek's feet, and forcing the Thai player into increasingly difficult half volleys. The second set will feel less contested because once Swiatek's disruption plan stops generating free points, she doesn't have the baseline firepower to trade with Eala in extended rallies on any surface, let alone grass, where the ball comes at you faster and lower. What makes this quarter-final worth watching isn't the uncertainty of outcome, it's the texture of the competition itself. 2 Southeast Asian women, trained on different continents, shaped by different systems, carrying the expectations of nations that care deeply about tennis, even though neither country has ever produced a Grand Slam singles champion. Eala represents the Rafa Nadal Academy pipeline, the Philippine Sports Commission's investment, the accumulated dreams of a country that last won SEA Games tennis gold 26 years before she delivered it in Bangkok. Sawangkaew represents the Thai Federation's development pathway, a former Oklahoma State college player who returned home and rebuilt herself for the professional tour, a player whose career high ranking of 100 proves she belongs at this level, even if her current ranking of 173 suggests she's been sliding backward. For Sawangkaew, reaching the quarterfinals of a surface she barely knows is already a statement. Every round won is ranking points recaptured, confidence restored, proof that the slide from the top 100 is temporary rather than terminal. She does not need to beat Eala for this week to matter. But she will try because athletes at this level don't calculate meaning in retrospect while the match is still available to be won. For Eala, this is about something different. It's about proving that grass-court tennis belongs in her repertoire, that the dominance she showed in Rome on clay and in Miami on hard courts can translate to the oldest surface in the sport, a title here, and she is the clear favorite to win this tournament. It would represent another data point in an ascending career that has, for the first time, experienced a ranking dip from 29 down to 37 and needs to demonstrate that the dip was circumstantial, not structural. Eala takes this one, the margin is real, the form is present, and the grass, despite being unfamiliar to both players, rewards the athlete with the bigger game. That's Eala, and this week's evidence has only reinforced what the ranking